Rust. We're going to test 3 Rust effects kits, one from Vallejo, one from Ammo by Meg, and one from AK Interactive, plus a DIY version at the end. We're going to be using them on these model trucks, and step number 1 is disassembly. Let's take a look at some real rust. To me, there are 2 basic types. Desert rust, where the paint has given up the ghost and the surface has slowly rusted to a dark brown. And salt rust, where something corrosive, usually rolled salt, but could also be a host of other things, has sped up the process and creates the whole color gamut from orange through red to brown. Salt rust can also start from the inside and burst out, and it tends to make flakes, holes, and a very rough surface.
The first one is from Vallejo. It's rust and chipping effects. And let's take a look at what's in here. Step-by-step instructions.
8 colors of paint.
And these all being model air means they're formulated to spray through an airbrush right out of the bottle. Next up is the AK crusted rust deposits. This doesn't come with instructions in the case, but on AK's website they have a PDF you can download that has kind of instructions for all of them. This is the Ammo Rust Effects Super Pack. 2 instruction cards. In the box we have 3 paints, some oil brushers, 2 washes. We have a light rust wash and Trax wash.
The last part of the kit is a set of 3 pigments.
First impressions out of the box. Number 1 is the ammo kit. It's the most complete, it has the most effects in it. It's got paint, it's got washes, it's got oil brushes to do streaking, it's got pigments to add texture, and it's got complete instructions. Number 2 is the Vallejo kit. It's pretty much a standard set of paints with some chipping fluid added and a complete set of instructions. Number 3 is the AK kit. It's essentially 3 washes, and if you want the instructions, you have to go online and find them yourself. Also, they kind of come in that order price-wise. The ammo is generally the most expensive, the Vallejo second, and the AK set is usually the cheapest. Step number 1 for Vallejo is to prime the surface with Surface Primer 70.605 dark red brown. So let's see how this flows. It says to do it unthinned, so that's what we're going to do. Well, it certainly goes out a lot quicker. So it's step 1 for Vallejo.
Step number 1 for ammo is also priming, which they don't include in the kit. First with a black base, then with a white zenithal highlight.
Now we're on to step 2 with Vallejo, and that is spottily covering it with the 71-042 dark brown. And other than you look at reference photos, they don't give you a whole lot of tips how you want to do this, what it should look like. So that is color 1. Rust number 71.080, and it's the same thing going over in random patterns. So that is after step 3 for Vallejo.
We continue on with the spotty coverage with 2 more colors, 71.129 light rust and 71.130 orange rust. We skip 71.033 yellow ochre because that's not really the color of rust.
So this is where we are with our base for the rust for Vallejo.
Ammo starts with an application of Meg.41 dark rust.
So that is color number 1, and I mixed way too much of it. But I don't want to get rid of all of that zenithal highlighting. So we're going to do the thing a cheap guy doesn't want to do and dump the paint. Now we'll do the second color, which is Meg-42 Old Rust. Done with the 2 colors for step 2 on the ammo. We're doing AK, and we're going to start with medium rust. What they want you to do is just paint over where you want the rust in multiple layers. So we're just going to start pushing this on there. So that is layer 1 for the AK Interactive. So this is the dark rust, crusted rust deposits. Dark rust, crusted rust deposits from AK. So this is going to go into the center of all of our spots. Color 2, layer 1. We'll let that dry a bit, maybe do a little blending, and go in for layer 2. I took some thinner and blended. It didn't seem to make a big difference on the first color, but on here, it does. It's really getting those two colors together and getting a lot of different tones in there. This is going to dry, and we'll put on another layer of the dark rust. It's not as dark as it showed in their instructions. I wish it was a little darker, but we'll put that on and blend it some more and see how it looks. So the blending it with the odorless thinner is, I think, a pretty important part of this. We've got the dark rust all in. I'm going to add a little more of the medium rust deposits around the edges, and then we'll go to the light, and then this one is pretty much done. So, like areas like there. It would probably be working better with a matte finish on it, because it seems like this stuff does, I don't know how to say it, it doesn't wet out, and it kind of pools up as it dries. I'll let that dry. We'll come back with some light rust, maybe blend it together a little bit with the enamel thinner, and this one will be pretty much done. Now we're going to finish up the AK with the light rust deposits. Oh, I've never even opened this one. Let's see what we can do with this guy. So we're going to let this dry and see what it looks like, see if it needs any little touch-ups, any little additions, changes, and the AK one should pretty much be done. The next step for both the Vallejo and the ammo is to spray some chipping fluid on it. Oh, this isn't good. This is what happens when you forget to clean your airbrush before you go in for dinner and leave it sit out here for a day. You get to take it apart and soak everything in alcohol and hope that all of the congealed paint comes out, because it wasn't going to spray nothing. The next step for both the Vallejo and ammo is to spray with chipping medium. Now, I'm going to clean my airbrush so it doesn't get gummed up again. We're just going to put the final color on, and then it gets chipped. So this is just automotive painting right here. There. That is good. So now we've got the color go. Let that dry, and we'll chip it. This is the next step in the ammo process. So we put chipping fluid on here, and now it says to put on a coat of medium rust. MiG 0040. But I think that's good. So it says to let this dry to the touch, and then start chipping it. So that is what we're going to do. This is step 9 in the Vallejo process, second to last step. We're going to do the water chipping. Right, and as you do this, you want to try to envision where the rust would occur and chip the paint off there more and less where there would be less rust. And there we go. That is the finale for the Vallejo version. It does get a matte coat on it. So we'll let that dry and put it back together and take a look at it next to the rest of them. This is the chipping step on this medium rust on the ammo kit. This is going to have a different effect because the last chipping we did was on the final top coat, and this is just rust over rust. This ammo instruction kit is kind of a amalgam of techniques and not necessarily the, this is how you do it step by step, but that's the way we're going to follow it, because if you're brand new and looking for, buying a kit, looking for something to tell you how to do it, that's kind of what you're going to be looking for. That is step 5 of the ammo process, chipping the light or medium rust, they call it. That's pretty light looking. On to the next step.
Now we're doing step 7 of the ammo procedure. We're applying the rust streaking brusher. So the way we do this is pull the streaks down. I think I need a different brush. the Walmart brush, not so much working. Let's try it with a finer tip brush, see how this works. Now let's do the cab. Ooh, that's a lot. That's, I think, a drawback of this. With that giant brush. Maybe the brush works better on 1/35 scale. And I'm going to try doing this instead of putting the dots on with this brush. Let's try it with just the paintbrush. We're going to call that good with the streaking stuff. It's usually a little bit less is better than too much. And I think I'm liking the thin brush better, especially as the scales get smaller. So that step is done. On to the next. This is step number 8 on the ammo by MIG. We're going to do some chipping with the dark rust color. And you can go absolutely nuts with this. Rather than have you sit here through 15 minutes of chipping, we'll come back for the next step. Step number 9 in the ammo procedure is using these oil brushers, rust and dark brown, to make some rust stains of all types. They can be blended, streaked, and pooled. So we're going to try a couple. We'll do a little bit back here in the bed, and maybe a little bit on the roof. I think we'll take this number 1, a little bit of odorless thinner, and blend those around, see what we can do. Start on here in case I screw it up. The bed is always easier to deal with. There, so that kind of demonstrates the little pooling effects you can make. So let's get a good look at this. Of course, that's got to dry. Push this back up to the center of the roof a little bit. There we go. On to the next step. We're on to step number 10, which is using the enamel wash to give dark oxide staining look to large areas. And we'll probably just go to right next to 11 too, which is doing the same thing with the light orange light rust wash. And then we're going to blend these. There is our track wash. Now we're going to do the same thing with the light rust wash. So here we go. It needs to dry, and we'll go on to the next step. We are on step 12 of the MIG, which is to do some additional chipping using dark rust and medium rust using a brush or a sponge. So we'll do a little bit of this, and I do have a little piece of sponge here. We should probably use a brush for this since its scale is so small. Now we'll switch to the other color, the dark rust. So that is the additional chipping step. Now we'll move on to the next one. Ammo applies pigments twice. We're going to skip the first application, put on chipping mediums, then paint the truck. Now we're going to give this thing a coat of color. There we go. Now we'll let that dry, and then we'll chip it. Now it is time to chip this. Let's see how we go. So we're doing a combination of desert rust and salty rust. So desert rust is always on the top. It's where the UV kills the paint. And there's, let's call it Midwest salt bust.
Midwest salt belt rust. That's where the salt collects and just rusts to hell. If I know anything about trucks, this cab corner is like the first place to rust. Pigment will go good down in these corrody corners. Okay, that's good. Now we're on to the next step, 17, where we let the model dry for 24 hours and apply an overall wash of MIG 1004 light rust wash and MIG 1002 track wash. And there's our wash. Hopefully I don't dump it over. So this is going to kind of focus on areas like this. And I'm going to immediately take a Q-tip, pick some of it back up, clean my brush, and then we're going to do a little bit with the light rust in a different way. Do a little streaking. And we just want some little touches here. What I want to try to do with this is do a little streaking with it. Probably needs a little bit more to do that. So there we go. We'll let that dry and we'll go on to the last step, which is some pigments. Final step for the ammo. We're going to be using pigments. Look right there. We're going to use some pigments. And to do this, we use some thinner. So let's see how this works. I've never used this before. There we go. That looks pretty good. I don't know how it's going to change when it dries. Now we're going to do the last pigment, our darkest stuff, track rust. Kind of in the center of the rust spots we've already made. So again, we're going to take some a little thinner. That was a lot of thinner. Then take a little bit of our pigment. Don't do it over to the side. Let's do it where we can see it. And let's see how this works on top of that. There. That is the final step. We'll probably put a little clear varnish on this to seal everything in. Then we'll put this together and review it. So we're going to do two things on this one. We're going to do some hairspray chipping and some oil paint. The first thing, give it a coat of hairspray. And this is going to kind of be a reverse hairspray chip. What we're going to do is primarily be chipping where we want this existing paint job to come through. We'll chip the rust color off and leave the rust where we want it to be rusty. Now we're going to start giving it some rust overcoat. I'm just going to use two colors on this. I just grabbed two Vallejo ones. You want a lighter one and a darker one. So we've got Vallejo rust and dark brown. We're going to start with the lighter color. Ooh, there goes the hood. Let's see if we can get that back on. So the light color you kind of want everywhere you're going to have rust, or maybe a better description would be on the outsides. So I'm kind of combining things here. I'm doing the rust belt rust, which would be like in areas down here, cab corners, back of the fenders, the rockers, where all the salt and gook hangs up. And I'm also combining in the desert type rusting, which is from the top down. Now we're going to start chipping. So what we want to do is chip the areas where the rust wouldn't be. Let's see how this goes. And we can also use a toothpick, because this I want a little more controlled. There, I'm going to call that good. Stop messing with it. Let it dry. We're going to use some oil paints and do a little streaking and then a little bleaching and splotching. So, just put a couple of dots on here. Then we're going to take a soft brush and try streaking them down. So these are the colors we're using: burnt umber, raw sienna, burnt sienna. Take our brush, just stroke down. We've done some streaking. We're going to go in here and add some little rusty highlights. We'll see how this turns out when it dries, but the hope is we'll add a little bit of texture too. So there's a finale. We'll let that dry. We'll put it back together and put it in line with the rest of them. Fairly easy. Hairspray, 2 tones of rust-colored acrylic, and then some streaking and modeling with oils.
First is AK Interactive. AK Interactive does everything by applying their effects over the base color of the model and has the most limited palette of options with only 3 colors. It is best for mild rusting and staining, and worst for major rust. The darkest color is still in the red-orange range, which isn't right for old rust. It's ideal for light weathering on a model where you want to keep the original paint job. It is also the one that relies the most on user skill. Vallejo. The Vallejo kit is a pretty standard set of paints. It covers the entire gamut of rust colors and includes both matte varnish to protect the finished rust and chipping fluid in the set. The kit's instructions start by covering the entire model in a base rust color, which isn't ideal if you have something pre-painted where you want to preserve that original finish, like a railroad car. You can get around that by first coating the model with chipping fluid, painting your rust, then chipping back to the original finish, the way we did on the DIY version. It's also designed for airbrush application and gives great results if you have one. I don't think I would choose this kit if you don't have an airbrush. All the paints are acrylic, which makes them less suitable for streaking, and they can't be blended with thinner like enamels and oil paint. This kit is best for medium to heavily rusted models, especially ones where you will apply the final color and don't want to preserve an existing finish. It has a medium dependency on user skill. Ammo. The ammo kit is by far the most complete, which it should be, as it's also the most expensive. It covers everything from light staining to a completely rusted hull, with paint, washes, oil brushes, and pigments. The base instructions also start with covering the entire model in a base rust color, like the Vallejo, but again you can chip it like the DIY version to preserve the original paint. And there are enough other options in the kit to get pretty much any effect you want without base coating in a rust color. The instructions are complete, but are more a list of all the things you can do with the kit rather than a step-by-step recipe to follow, especially if you aren't making a completely rusted wreck. But with a little experimenting, you can pick out which techniques and materials you want to use and where. One issue is the instructions call out chipping fluid, but there's none included in the kit. You could substitute hairspray, but a complete beginner might not know this, and they should probably either include chipping fluid or not call it out. This kit can do everything you would ever want in rust effects. It has the least dependence on user skill. There are a lot of options, they do the heavy lifting, and most of them are forgiving. The washes, oil brushes, and pigments can be worked and reworked quite a bit with thinner or removed completely. DIY. The DIY version is very simple. Just hairspray, a light and a dark rust color, and some oil paints. It does a decent job with a few steps and is pretty forgiving. With the base of hairspray and the oil paints, you can pretty much remove everything and start over if you do it right away. It can be applied over while preserving a base finish and can cover a pretty broad range of effects, falling short of the most extremely rusted examples. If I were to add one commercial rust product to it, it would be a pigment, and then it would cover the entire range of rust. It has a medium dependency on user skill. I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. If you did, here's another one you'll like.